Okay, folks, part three. Just to wrap up here with Maggie, and then you can see much more directly how in this one scene where Pete and Maggie go and watch a popular melodrama, which is basically a popular romance. But Dr. Watson, who's an expert on melodramas, can tell you more about this. But yeah, so they go off and watch this melodrama, and so you can see then that Crane is directly faulting popular forms of literature for propagating these crazy romantic notions that people believe, wrongly believe, and then they structure the world of reality out there around, the characteristics that are brought out in melodramas, and then they end up making really bad choices because they think the world out there is like the world is presented in melodramas. Okay, so here you see this. Crane is directly faulting melodramas in the same way that you saw Mark Twain faulting Sir Walter Scott and writers of other popular romances like that, or the way you see Henry James faulting transcendentalists like Emerson or Margaret Fuller, okay? Calling them out directly. So look over on page 27. Yeah, okay, very bottom of 27. So they're going and watching this melodrama. Shady persons in the audience, they're talking about the whole audience now watching these melodramas and the response of the audience. Shady persons in the audience revolted from the pictured villainy of the drama. With untiring zeal, they hissed vice and applauded virtue. Unmistakably bad men evinced an apparently sincere admiration for virtue. So she's saying, so he's saying, Crane is saying, look at people I know that guy over there. He robbed a bank last week, right? So you see what I'm getting at? So really bad people can just sort of gild their own crimes. They can say, see, I can recognize the difference between good and evil, and I'm going to treat that bad guy as a scapegoat so that I myself can feel absolved or give my own conscience a break for my own crimes, right? And see, I identify with his virtuous character up on the stage. So see, I'm really a good guy like he is. So he's saying that these melodramas just enable really, really bad behavior. They're just evil. they're doing bad. Okay. The loud gallery was overwhelmingly with the unfortunate and the oppressed. They encouraged the struggling hero with cries and jeered the villain, hooting and calling attention to his whiskers. Pete had pretty bad whiskers on his face, didn't he? When anybody died in the pale green snowstorms, the gallery mourned. They sought out the painted misery and hugged it as a kin. So, yeah. Okay, so you see what we're getting at here, right? Yeah, I think I've made my point. And Maggie falls for all of it. Okay, so, and we know what ends up happening to poor Maggie. She can't imagine that Pete would be anybody other than this knight in shining armor. The good guys wear white sort of characters that you would see in a melodrama. Oh, and this is what I mean by melodrama. Have any of you all seen the Summer Mummers? They have it every summer in Midland. And every year they work up some kind of funny, silly, very simplistic little play. That's a classic melodrama. you literally have the bad guys coming in with the long mustaches, and they clasp their hands like this and laugh like, hey, 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 right? Sorry. And that's going to be out there on YouTube for everyone to see. I just did that, right? Okay, those are the bad guys, and they wear black hats, right? The good guys come riding in, and they all dress in white, and they're like, I'll save you, right? That kind of thing. All right, those are melodramas. But go see Summer Mummers. It's a lot of fun if y'all have never been. I've been many, many times. Okay, check it out. Okay, so, but you believe that stuff, then, Maggie's going to have her knight in shining armor rolling in. Okay, so then it does bring up the question, if you look over on page 60, this is the second to last page of the novel. Yeah, page 60 now. And this does raise the question then, is there really ultimately any moral in the story? Ironically enough, it would seem to say, yeah, be like Nellie. Don't be a fool like Maggie. You have to be a really, really bad person to survive. Law of the jungle, eat or be eaten. Ironically enough, it's hard not to tease out a moral like that, It is possible that the moral would be something along the lines of, romanticism is bad. We got to get in reality. I do think a moral like that is there, and that would keep the book in keeping with other literature we've looked at this semester. Is there? One thing we have to look at the end is there any images of religious kind of redemption here? As awful as life was for life in the iron mills, for example, you had the Quaker woman at the end of the story coming in and saving Deb and saying, it's too late for you, or too late for Hugh, but it's not too late for you, Deb, and I will save you. So you see, that book is definitely representing Christian morality, true Christian morality, in a very favorable light. But is there anything like that showing up in this book? At the end, maybe. Let's look at it. This is chapter 18. Very, very last lines of chapter 18. So, this is, this is just after Nellie runs off on Pete. And then you see what happens. His conscience just destroyed him. And then, so, last lines of chapter 60 or chapter 18. The wine from an overturned glass drips softly down upon the blotches of the man's neck. So wine dropping here. What an image, right? That is, it's hard not to read into that images of the sacrament, the bread and the wine, right? So it seems to hold out the possibility that maybe Pete is experiencing some kind of redemption because of that wine, the Eucharist. But yeah, not really. This is an ironic representation of redemption for Pete. There's this blood, this wine that he seems to be receiving, but there ain't no redemption there, right? And then you see something similar over on chapter 19, the very beginning of this. It's Mary, right? It's Maggie's mother. A soiled, her parents, right? A soiled, unshaven man pushed open the door and entered. Well, said he, Mag's dead. What? Said the woman, mouth filled with bread. Okay. You had the wine and now the bread. Is there any kind of sense of redemption there for Maggie or for Mary? And yes, we are supposed to read into that name, Mary, Mother Mary. You know, is there any, you know, Mary as bestows eternal motherly grace and love upon everybody? Is Maggie's Mother Mary anything like that, even though she has that name? And now she has the bread, another image of the Eucharist, right? Not by a long shot. So this is meant to be deeply, deeply ironic. But I don't think even this is dark comedy. I think it's just heartbreaking irony. I don't think this is supposed to be funny. Okay, and then over on page 61. So what does Mary do? I mean, Mary of the Bible, you know, her purpose is to define, to define and to, you know, be a never-ending source of love and grace and forgiveness. What does Mary do but intercede with the Heavenly Father for poor broken hearts here on planet Earth? So Mary then, right? Image of eternal love, grace, forgiveness. And so you see Mary, Maggie's Mother Mary, saying, right? So one of her neighbors is saying, right, you'll forgive her, Mary. You'll forgive your bad, bad child. Her life was a curse and her days were black, and you'll forgive your bad girl? She's gone where her sins will be judged. And so look at what happens at the bottom. Oh yes, I'll forgive her, I'll forgive her. So is Crane trying to say that Mary dispensing this forgiveness, this is supposed to feel like redemption in some measure? Not really. I mean, for crying out loud, does Maggie have anything that, you know, that she's done wrong to her mother and her mother, where her mother needs to forgive her? For crying out loud, doesn't it work the other way around? That of all the horrible things that Mary did to Maggie, isn't it Maggie that needs to be thinking about if she can forgive her mother or not for being an alcoholic and abandoning her whole life and being angry and abusive and absent and all that sort of stuff, and throwing her out of the house when she was in greatest need? And Mary just has a big enough heart to be able to forgive her. Oh man, nope. So this is, again, another deeply ironic image of religious redemption. And I don't think dark comedy is here. I think this is just awful. But I laugh anyway. But, you know, I'm kind of, well, anyway. All right, okay. So I think, I hope I made that point clear. Okay. So ultimately, I think this is the takeaway message then. You know, the choice for Maggie is ultimately between a morality that doesn't work, you know, middle-class respectability and true womanhood virtues, that morality that clearly doesn't work, and then survival skills like Nellie's that seem utterly reprehensible. So what's a woman like Maggie gonna do? Yeah, you're just trapped. You're stuck. And that seems to be kind of the takeaway message here. And so, and so some of you are thinking all these things like, you know, is there a morality here? I mean, does Crane seem to be delivering a message that we've got to clean up the Bowery the way Davis seems to be saying, look, all you rich guys out there who are profiting off the backs of the Hugh Wolfs of the world, y'all need to straighten up your act and treat your workers with more dignity and respect, and give them pay them a living wage, basically, right? And give them meaningful opportunity. That moral message is definitely there. In this book, you know, I just don't see a figure like the Quaker woman or anything like that popping up and presenting a way out for the Maggies of the world. This is how dark and bleak this story really is. Yeah, I realize I'm getting quieter as I'm saying that, but I really think that was just how bleak and dark Crane's vision was. Yeah, I wish I could leave. I wish I could leave this story and therefore the whole semester on a happier note, but I'll just come back to my initial point about, that this whole book is really meant to be, and kind of an adolescent act of rebellion. That ultimately I think Crane is using the Bowery to make fun of and show the shallowness of middle-class morality, much like he himself rebelled against the strict upbringing when he started drinking heavily and hanging around prostitutes. Yeah, I forgot to neglect that. Crane loved drinking, and he did live in the Bowery for a while. He hung around prostitutes, dated one for a while even, and gambled. And he lived a crazy wild life, being a war correspondent and things like that. So he was quite an adventure and thrill seeker. Okay, a little like Jack London. Okay. So you don't see Crane then trying to extend middle-class values and the comfort they might bring to those struggling in the Bowery, unlike what we saw with Davis and Alger. So anyway, okay, well, that's naturalism, folks. Wish I could end the semester on a happier note, but there you go. That's Stephen Crane's Maggie. So I'll put this all in writing. I'll type all this out, but just as a final note here, thank you. You all have been a wonderful group. I'm sorry the semester wrapped up the way that it did, all of us having to be in isolation like this. But you guys did a good job this semester, and thank you. You were a lot of fun. I loved working with you. I love spending time in class with you, even virtually like this. The whole time I'm talking, I'm picturing all of you sitting out there in the way, anticipating the questions that different ones of you might be asking and trying to respond accordingly. So thank you, and I mean that sincerely. And if there's anything I can do for any of you along the way, not just related to the class, but if you have any career questions or want any kind of suggestions of any kind along those lines, I am more than happy to help. If you're interested at all in taking other classes with me, I would be more than happy to see you next semester, each and every one of you. So, okay. All right. Well, have a good summer, y'all. And yeah, take good care. Bye-bye.